Hello, biology students. Hope you guys are doing well. So, we are into chapter 20 now, which is the beginning of looking at human anatomy and physiology. And this has two parts. First is just kind of an intro to human anatomy, and then after that, we look at the first body system, the integumentary system. So, first from chapter 20A, part 2, some anatomical terms as well as a little bit about human tissues, organs, and systems. So, a couple terms first. Anatomy. Anatomy is the study of the shape and structure of an organism and of its parts. So, anatomy gets into the names of all sorts of things and where they're located, what they're shaped like, stuff like that. Whereas physiology is the study of the function of living organisms and their parts. So, sometimes one is studied and then another. So, there's like a semester of anatomy and then a semester of physiology. Sometimes you look at both at the same time. And so you learn about a little bit of the anatomy of one particular part, and then you learn about what it does. Then you move on to a different part of the body. That's a little bit closer to the approach that this textbook takes. Physiology is a lot harder to learn about because when you're dealing with all sorts of internal organs, first of all, there's just the difficulty of, well, how do you learn what different parts of the body do inside of a person's body without either severely injuring or killing the person in order to see what they do? So that's where anatomy, you can deal with stuff like cadavers and you can cut them open and you can look at all the different parts and everything like that, and great, but they're not functioning at that point. So physiology is a lot harder to learn about, and there's still stuff that we don't understand super well. And then there's something called anatomical position. So what the deal is here is it'd be really confusing if we didn't have a set position that the human body is in when we're talking about it. If a person said, well, the part that I'm talking about is like kind of somewhat toward the outside on the left upper left part. Well, it's like when you say upper, how is the body position? When you say stuff like that. Anyway, so this is important to have a fixed orientation for describing the body in order to have clarity and consistency. So people can use terms about where in the body something is located and people understand where they're describing. And some details of it, and then we'll look at some pictures, is it is a person standing upright with their arms at their side. And I should say that they are facing toward you. And then their palms are facing forward. So here's what we mean by that. Okay. This is the anatomical position. Facing the person is facing towards you, and the palms are facing forward and they're standing upright. This person is also kind of an anatomical position, but we're looking at the side anatomical position. He should be facing toward us. Okay. Then a few terms that come up a lot in describing things relative to anatomy. So anterior means toward the front. So like your face is on the anterior side of your body and your heels are on the posterior side of your body. So posterior toward the back. Okay? Superior means upward or toward the head. So your head is superior to your shoulders. Okay? Your knee is superior to your shin. And it might be like, well, I thought it doesn't say proximal versus distal. We'll get to that. Okay, inferior, opposite of superior. Okay, so you could say that like your chin is inferior to your nose, not inferior as in like a person who is less good or a thing that is less good, but just inferior as in literally below or beneath. Proximal, closer to the trunk of the body or to another specified reference point. So we could say that the knee is superior to the shin, but we could also say that the knee is proximal relative to the shin. In other words, the knee is closer to the trunk than the shin is. Okay, so proximal versus distal. So distal is the opposite of proximal. Proximal and distal are two terms that both come up when you're talking about stuff that is attached to the trunk. So usually you're talking about bones or ligaments or muscles that are on your arms or legs. Let's see. I just had the name of a ligament come to mind that starts with a P, but it's not proximal. It's something else. Okay. Then next after proximal and distal, so you can see most of these come in pairs: anterior versus posterior, superior versus interior or inferior, proximal versus distal. Next we have medial. Medial means closer to the midline. So like this is this midline right here, okay? And so medial will be closer to the middle, and then lateral will be toward the side of the midline or away, farther away from the midline. And then superficial, on or near the surface, versus deep toward the inside. And then transverse, this involves like how you would section. If you said that like that is a this lies on the transverse plane, as opposed to it runs parallel to the sagittal line or the sagittal plane. So transverse, a line that divides the body into superior and inferior portions. So like this line right here, these two lines, the anterior posterior lines here, that would be a transverse line. If we sliced right here, we would have a superior portion and an inferior portion. Okay, so like if same thing, if we did a slice, I'm not talking about literally, slicing the guy's chest and slicing his leg, but figuratively speaking, right? If we sliced, we would have a superior portion and an inferior portion. I'm sorry, we'd have an and well, yeah, superior and inferior. Um, or yeah, never mind. Superior and inferior. So that can be helpful to be like, okay, well a an image that I'm looking at. Is this image a transverse image or a sagittal image? So a transverse image of a person's brain, for example, would be as if you are above the brain looking down because you're looking at the slice that would be created by the transverse line. And then sagittal, a line that divides the body into right and left portions. So the midline here would also create a sagittal line. So a sagittal image of a person's brain would be as if you sliced right here and you split it into left and right, and you looked at the cross section of the right side of the brain. That would be a sagittal image. All right, so that is those terms. Next, a little bit about human tissues. So, first of all, the term histology. Histology is the microscopic study of tissues. And there are four main tissue types: there's connective tissue, epithelial, muscle, and nervous. So, connective tissue includes bones, blood, lymph, tendons. You might be like, well, connective says like it connects things, and I can kind of see how like the bones connect parts of your body, or that tendons connect part of your body, maybe even that fat connects part of your body. But how does like blood connect part of your body? Well, kind of. I mean, it flows, it runs throughout, and it kind of fits into connective tissue because it doesn't really fit into any of the others, but you can kind of make an argument that it's like it kind of connects stuff together. Epithelial tissue, layers of cells that cover or line external and internal surfaces. So, epithelial is not just like your skin cells, it could be also stuff like the quote unquote skin of the outside of your stomach, the quote unquote skin of the inside of your small intestine, stuff like that. So, epithelial tissues. Muscle tissue, cells that can contract. That's basically what it comes down to. But there are three types of muscle tissue: there's skeletal tissue, smooth tissue, and cardiac tissue. Generally speaking, most skeletal tissue, we can voluntarily control. Okay, it's like I can voluntarily control the skeletal tissue that moves my fingers or that moves my arm or that moves my head, kind of stuff. Smooth tissues are usually involuntary. That would be like the muscles that move food down your digestive tract. I don't have voluntary control over those. I can't like decide to do it or tell myself to stop doing it. Okay? And then cardiac tissue is your heart tissue. And then finally, nervous tissue. These are cells that receive and transmit electrochemical impulses from muscles, glands, and other nerve cells. Okay, so your nervous system tissues. And just to show what a histologist might look at, here we have some imagery of three different types of muscle tissue. So skeletal muscle looks like that, smooth muscle looks like that. You might be like, well, that doesn't look very smooth. Like, well, mainly it lacks these vertical lines that are these striations, and then cardiac muscle. Whereas liver tissue might look like this, whereas kidney tissue might look like this, whereas um, adipose tissue or fat, loose connective fat tissue might look like that. And you're wondering, are they all pink? Why are they? Well, the pink is just because of the way that these were stained so that it's easier to see the cells. That's pretty much what's going on there. All right. Next, we move on to human organ systems. So the body systems, the major functions that each body system does, and then the major components of each body system. So first, the integumentary system. So what we have right here, this is just a kind of a bird's eye view. Most of these we'll look at in a little bit more depth as we go chapter by chapter through these last few chapters. So the integumentary system, it protects the tissues, it provides covering. And major parts of it, skin, hair, and nails, skeletal tissue, it provides support. It also provides attachment for muscles, and it helps protect internal organs. And yeah, attachment for muscles. Your muscles would just be like, imagine if like your muscles were just like pulling on your organs when you go to move, and so it just like tugs and pulls, and it doesn't actually help with movement much, stuff like that. Main parts of your skeletal system: bones, cartilage, and joints. And then we have the muscular system. And what does it do? It helps with bodily movement, helps you maintain posture, it helps with internal substance movement, and main component of your muscular system, big surprise, muscles. Next, the respiratory system. This helps with movement of air in and out of your body and gas exchange between blood and air. So, getting the air in and out of your body and then getting the air into your blood and then also getting gases out of your blood. And the main parts here: nose, throat, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. Oh, the bold terms. I'm going to go back one slide. The bold terms are for things that usually would be considered an organ, a body organ. So, like your skin is considered an organ. Okay, it's actually the largest organ in your body. Um, yeah, some interesting details there, but I'm going to move on. So we were in respiratory. So nose is considered an organ. Your lungs are considered organs. The trachea, it's the tube that brings air from your mouth down to the bronchi, which is like the branching of the trachea, which then goes into your lungs. The digestive system, it takes in, breaks down, and absorbs food, and it eliminates waste. And it includes the mouth, teeth, tongue, esophagus, stomach, intestines, pancreas, liver, gallbladder, among other things. All right, next one. Oh, actually, I'm going to go back one because liver was here. Video question number one. Well, I'm actually starting with number one. Video question number one. What is the largest internal organ in the human body? And the answer is the liver. So your skin is considered the largest overall organ, but the largest internal organ is your liver. So answer to video question number one, liver. Your liver, an average adult's liver is about 3.5 pounds. And that's actually the biggest organ that you have. Average adult skin is like around 9 pounds. So we're talking almost three times the weight of the liver. But it's both surprising how big the liver is, as well as if you say like an average adult's weight is what, like 120, 150 pounds, and the largest internal organ that we have is 3.5 pounds. There's a lot of weight going into a lot of other stuff. Okay, so that was number one. Moving on, the circulatory system. It circulates blood to transport substances throughout the body, and its main components: the heart, arteries, veins, and capillaries. There are terms that you don't recognize here. Most of them we'll briefly talk about later. Then there's the lymphatic system. You maybe heard of lymph nodes, like a person saying, I can tell I'm kind of getting sick because my lymph nodes feel swollen. Or when a doctor is feeling kind of under your chin, like in your upper throat, the doctor is checking your lymph nodes to see if it seems like your lymph nodes are swollen, because that can be an early indication of fighting some kind of disease. So yeah, it helps protect against disease. Main components: the spleen, lymph glands, lymphatic vessels, and tonsils. Then the excretory system. It helps eliminate waste and maintain water balance. So excretory system is when you urinate. That is your excretory system. Even though solid waste can be referred to as excrement, that's not part of your excretory system. Urine is part of your excretory system. And then the key components here: your kidneys, your ureters, your urinary bladder, and your urethra. Next, the nervous system. Coordinate and control all movement, receive and transmit information, process sensory information. Key components: your brain, your spinal cord, different peripheral nerves, your eyes, your ears, your taste receptors, your olfactory and auditory organs. Olfactory relates to smell, auditory relates to hearing, optic relates to seeing. Then the endocrine system. The endocrine system, it regulates body functions, and its main components: various glands that secrete hormones, such as the pituitary gland that is heavily involved with growth. So a person with pituitary gland problems can either end up not growing as to be as tall as they otherwise should have, or they can end up with an overactive pituitary gland and end up being larger than their body would have naturally grown to. Your thyroid gland, your adrenal gland, this one, the pineal gland. I didn't make it bold, but it is usually considered a body organ. And this is your answer to video question number 2. What is the smallest human organ? The smallest human organ. Answer is the pineal gland. And what it does is really, it's like really toward the middle of your brain, deep in your brain, and it helps regulate your internal clock, just so that like your body has kind of a sense of time. And I don't know if any of you know people that can like go to sleep and either just kind of decide when to wake up the next morning, or if they're laying down for a nap, they can kind of decide what time to get up, or like how long they want to be sleeping for a nap, or things like just having a sense of approximately how much time has gone by. And what, so things like that can relate to your pineal gland. Helps regulate your internal clock. And then finally, the reproductive system. Its main function: produce offspring. And then the major components: the ovaries that produce the eggs, the fallopian tubes, how the egg gets to the uterus, the testes produces the sperm in males, and the prostate gland. All right, now we look a little bit more specifically at the integumentary system. So, what are some of the functions of skin? Protection, right? That should be pretty clear. Sensation, temperature regulation, excretion. That's in the form of sweat. So, sweat is like 99% water, but there's about 1% that is salts and various substances. But what can happen is when your kidneys are not functioning properly, your body can be like, I have waste products, I have molecules that I need to get out of me, and they're not able to get out of me via my kidneys and then urinating. I got to get these molecules out of me some other way, and they're not in my digestive system, they're in my blood system. So I guess I'll try to release them through the sweat glands in the skin. And yeah, you oftentimes like doctors can tell if a person has kidneys that are malfunctioning because they'll be able to smell a distinct odor that their body is releasing because of some of the excretion that should be happening through their excretory system is happening through their skin. And then vitamin D manufacture. I mean, vitamin D has been kind of a hot topic in the context of coronavirus, but vitamin D, yeah, super important for different aspects of immunity. And our body doesn't naturally make vitamin D very well. We have to have a certain amount of exposure to sunlight to help with vitamin D manufacture. And then absorption, absorbing substances into your body. Okay, layers of the skin. Well, the outermost layer is the epidermis. It literally means like outer skin. Epidermis. It is the most superficial layer, most toward the surface, and is made entirely of layers of epithelial cells. Your body is constantly shedding epidermal cells, epithelial cells, and reproducing new ones. You're constantly sloughing off dead skin cells. Dead skin cells. I might have mentioned this at one point, but when an average person gets rid of a mattress that they've been using for a long time, the mattress usually weighs 2 to 3 times as much as it did when they first purchased it. And the extra weight is predominantly dead skin cells that have just gradually gotten trapped inside of the mattress, increasing the weight of the mattress. I'm pretty sure that's true. I know I've read it and heard it somewhere. I don't remember if I researched it well enough to verify that that actually is a fact. So don't completely quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's true. All right. Next, below the epidermis is the dermis, and it is composed primarily of connective tissue. It contains blood vessels, nerve endings, sweat glands, hair follicles, and oil glands. So, speaking of blood vessels, let me ask this question. This is video question number 4. Number 4. Approximately how many miles of blood vessels are there in just your skin? So if we looked at just mainly just as dermis, just well, yeah, just as dermis, just the skin of your body, approximately what length of blood vessels do you have running through the skin of your body? And the answer is 11 miles. 11. So if you laid all the blood vessels end to end, it would be a good 11 miles of blood vessels. And then below the dermis is the subcutaneous layer, and it's technically not part of the skin. It's composed of connective tissues that attach the dermis to the muscular systems, or muscular system, but different aspects of the muscular system. So, subcutaneous layer acts as a connection point for keeping your skin attached to the rest of your body. It's kind of important. All right, some integumentary factoids. Well, first of all, this diagram here before we look at those facts. So if we start at the top here, all right. So this would be the outer layer. So you have some hair shafts here. Speaking of hair, let's do video question number 3. How many strands of hair does an average person shed per day? How many strands of hair does an average person shed per day? And the answer is 50 to 150. 50 to 150. Yep, that's depending on how you look at it, that's a lot of hair or that's not very many hair. But uh, if you put a week of those hair sheddings per day and you put them all in one place, that would be a lot of hair. But our body is growing more, at least most of us, our body is growing more at enough of a rate that that's all right. So this top layer is the epidermis. Then here's the dermis. It has stuff like where's the sweat gland, sebaceous gland, itch sensory nerve, hair root. There we go. I was like, that looks like it, but where's the label? I just kept seeing the eccrine. So yeah, sweat gland. At one point, I almost had. Oh no, I have it over here. Sweat glands. Yeah. So the dermis has all this different stuff in the blood vessels. This would be an erector muscle that tugs on a hair shaft to make it stand more upright, to make it so that you help retain body heat a little bit better, among other things. Um, yeah, these would be like fat cells that are part of the. Well, so this calls it the hypodermis, but that's the same thing basically as a subcutaneous layer. It's below the dermis. Okay. Let's see. Fingernails grow faster on your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, your fingernails on your right hand usually will grow a little bit faster. We don't know exactly. We don't know exactly. I should say we don't know exactly why, though. We don't know exactly. Yeah. Though it seems to have to do with more frequent impacts. In other words, it appears to be that your nails, like tapping on stuff, triggers them to grow faster, and that you use your dominant hand more, and so your dominant hand's nails end up with little kinds of impacts more often, and so the nails on your dominant hand grow slightly faster. Some think that this is why also the main reason why your fingernails grow what, like 2 or 3 times as fast as your toenails, is that your toenails just don't have that same kind of regular impacts as your fingernails do. So yeah. Next little bullet point there, the sebum or oil from sebaceous glands helps keep the hair and skin soft. So you're constantly secreting a little bit of oil, and it helps keep your hair and skin from drying out or getting brittle. It also helps reduce water loss, but then it also has antifungal properties. It helps keep different types of like mold and fungi from growing on your skin. So yeah, that's a cool thing. Next bullet point, the oil produced in the ear canal acts as an insect repellent. I'm super thankful for this. That the like earwax that picks up a little bit of this oil that is produced by the skin inside of your, like the opening of your ear that goes down into your head. It has a chemical in it that acts as an insect repellent, which I'm really glad of because I really would not want my ear canal to be something that like mosquitoes and flies and gnats and stuff would regularly try to fly down into. So thankfully, because of the way our oil is designed in our ear canal, we have a natural insect repellent in there that, which I guess, I mean, theoretically, you could, like, if circumstances were somehow dire and you had to, like, really try to protect one part of your body from not getting bit by mosquitoes or something like that, theoretically, you could hope that you had enough earwax that you could kind of, like, rub it on that part. All right, I won't go there. And then finally, you have nearly 2,000 sweat glands per square inch of skin. Depending on where in the skin you're talking about, it might be as low as like 300 sweat glands per square inch, but on the upper end, you can have as many as, yeah, a good 2,000 sweat glands per square inch. There are only a few parts of your body where you do not have sweat glands. Your lips are one of them. There are a few other parts of the body that do not have sweat glands. Interesting thing, the palms of your hand and the bottoms of your feet are devoid of almost all of the dermis kind of things like hair. They don't produce hair follicles, things like that, but they do have sweat glands. Anyway, okay, we have done all the video questions except I just thought, number 5. Number 5, it relates to some stuff that we were looking at earlier, but here's where it's going. The question is, how many total organs and how many vital organs does the human body have? So, how many total organs and then how many vital organs? The total organs is debatable, some things, whether or not you count them as organs. So, the answer here is 75 to 100 total organs. You have 75 to 100 total organs. How many of those are vital, meaning how many of those would you die if you didn't have? 5 of them. So 75 to 100 total organs and then 5 vital organs. The 5 vital organs are your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your liver, and your lungs. You cannot live without your heart, your brain, your kidneys, your liver, or your lungs. We do have 2 kidneys, so you can lose one of them and still survive. We do have 2 lungs. You can lose one of them and still survive. But yeah. And that, I'm pretty sure, wraps up what we were going to look at with the integumentary system. Yep, there we go. So next video we'll be on to some other body systems, the skeletal and muscular systems. Have a good day.